Alexa Villegas with Envision the Future at OWH Studios. Kala, Perry, Roy, and I have gotten the opportunity to be here at OWH Studios for our internship. Envision the Future is a show run by us here to learn how videos and shows are produced. Today we have 4 stories to share with you all. I got the opportunity to interview my mentor about the work she does and how I can become an attorney myself with the advice she shared with us. Let's go to that. Hi, my name is Alexia Villegas with Envision the Future here at OWH Studios. Law is important and we need attorneys and lawyers to help defend and prosecute, help mentor young people. Our guest today is attorney Angelica Ornelas.
Good to be here.
Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
So, how did you get into law or decide to get into law?
For as long as I can remember, I thought I wanted to be a lawyer ever since I was a little kid. My parents always said, "Oh, you love to argue, you'd be a great lawyer." And I think that idea kind of stuck with me. So ever since I was a kid, I had that idea in my head, and I just followed my path through college and grad school and law school, and now being a plaintiff's lawyer in San Francisco.
So as a child, did you decide to be, or did you know that you wanted to be a defense or a prosecutor?
So there's a couple different areas of the law, right? So I do civil litigation, which means I'm in court suing, banks and corporations and other types of private entities. So it's more plaintiff versus defense, and I do the plaintiff side work. So I'm suing on behalf of people who have been harmed. And on the criminal side of the law, that's where you have, prosecutors and public defenders, and those are like where those titles come up. So I don't really do criminal work, but on the civil side of things, I'm, on the plaintiff side. So I'm fighting for the folks who need attorneys to defend their rights.
Yeah. So how much work and determination did it take for you to get into the position that you are in now?
It was a lot of tough work, long hours. Every time I had a challenge in terms of balancing everything that I had to do. It can be very challenging and very demanding, and sometimes you get really discouraged. But I've always thought it was important to fight for what I want. And if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? So you just kind of have to pivot, you have to adjust, and you have to keep going. And you can go forwards or backwards. And my thinking is you always go forward. So it's tough, just like usually any goal you want to accomplish is tough, right? I mean, attorneys work a lot and they work really hard, and it takes a long time to get to where they need to be. Same for doctors, same for professionals, right? I mean, professional athletes, think about all this, all of the work they have to put in to get into shape and perform at the level they need to perform at. So no matter what, I feel like it's a lot of work, and you have to stick with it and just put in the time and stick to your plan.
So before you became a litigation attorney, what kind of plan did you set for yourself?
I mean, my plan was always to go to law school and become an attorney. Before I became a practicing attorney, I had the good fortune of working with a professor of mine in law school very closely, and she suggested an avenue that I really didn't know was open to me when I was in law school. And she thought, you're one of those students who might make for a really good judicial law clerk. And a law clerk is someone who works very closely with a judge and does a lot of research and writing for the judge and helps the judge make determinations in the cases that are pending before the court. So my professor recommended me to a judge who she knew, and I ended up clerking for several years before making the transition into a practicing attorney. So it was one of those times in life where it was really great to have access to information that if I had been on my own and this professor hadn't reached out to me, I wouldn't have known about. And it ended up being really great for my career because it just made me such a stronger applicant when I did get out into the market and start looking for attorney positions, right? Mm-hmm. So it wasn't part of my path as I had constructed it, but I had a mentor who stepped in and said, hey, why don't you go this way and then take that next step, and I was so much the better for it.
So was your mentor your biggest inspiration for helping mentor young people?
I mean, I think I've gotten really lucky with having mentors pop up in kind of different aspects of my life, right? So during school, that professor was a key mentor for me. When I started, taking on internships at law firms while I was in law school, I had an attorney who took me under his wing and, gave me some really valuable insights about how law firms operate, which is something that, coming from my background, I didn't have a lot of experience with. So, I've had folks kind of step in and guide me in different aspects of my career, which has been really critical. And that's all of those people have really inspired me to pay it forward and, kind of make it easier for the next generation to move up, basically.
Since you took many steps to get to where you are now, so what steps do you, or what advice for students can you give?
I think don't be shy, right? You have, you have mentors, you have teachers, you have, even within your immediate network, you may not know someone who does a specific thing or, has a certain type of job, but be vocal about the things that you're interested in because somebody's always going to know somebody, right? So even if you don't have access to something in your immediate circle, speak up, because that's how I landed where I am is, somebody knew somebody and was able to put me in touch with that person. So, use the network that you have, speak up and be vocal about what you want to do, and just, put yourself out there. It can be really scary, right? Reaching out to a stranger or asking for help or saying, hey, I don't really know about, what so-and-so does, but I'd like to learn more. And right now that you're young and in school, just take advantage of those opportunities, because the more you dig in and start learning about what happens behind the scenes, in court or for entertainment or sporting events or whatever, you can, you find out about all of these different things that people do and all of these different roles that are out there that might really interest you.
Wow. So thank you for giving us all this information.
Thank you.
And thank you for showing us how important the law is in our everyday society.
Of course.
Thank you. My name is Alexa Villegas, here with Envision the Future, and this is our interview with Angelica Ornelas.
Great interview, Alexa. What lesson did you learn?
Thank you. The lesson that I learned from Angelica is that I should learn how to network more with different people in different careers so that I know where to get to later in life. And if you want to check out more of us, you could go to the YouTube OWH Studios.
Thank you so much. I did an interview with San Vincent about his experience with being a DJ, radio host, and working on Candy Camera. Here it is. Hello, my name is Kala Hopper. Welcome to Envision the Future. Today I'm with San Vincent. Hello.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. All right, how did you get into the job you have today?
The job I have now? K-Bay Radio is a radio station in San Jose, and it was owned by CBS. And it's funny you should ask that question because it was an accident. I had helped out at a charity event and pulled a few jokes, emceed. And the fellow in charge of it was the manager of a radio station. So I was driving along one day and my phone rang, and don't tell the CHP, but I answered. And he asked me if I wanted to work for K-Bay. Now, I had been working in a regular job already. The bulletin board said there was a job available in Gilroy, so I drove to Gilroy, didn't call ahead or anything. And I walked in and I said, I hear you're hiring. And the guy said, yes, we are. Can you do the job? And I said, yes, I can. And he sat me down and put me on the air that day.
What was your experience being a host?
My experience as a radio host, the most fun, you mean?
Yeah.
There were so many wonderful times, so much fun. There was I did a lot of interviews and they were fun, but I had a lot of great times in radio. The most fun, I think, is because I love the music, dancing to the music while it's playing and thinking of what I'm going to say next and coming up with a joke. And the wonderful thing about being in radio is you don't have an audience to groan or tell you your joke is terrible, and so you imagine people laughing. And in my case, I guess they were.
Were you inspired by anybody?
Yes, I had a local DJ named Larry Mitchell, and I was in high school, and I loved listening to him on the radio. So he made a personal appearance at the local county fair, and I went to the county fair, and he was about 20 feet away, and I just shouted his name, and he turned around and said, "How do I get into radio?" And he told me what school to go to, and that's the school I went to over the summer.
Do you think radio shows and DJs have changed over time as the years went by?
I've done radio shows, I'm sorry.
The radio shows or DJs, do you think they changed over time?
I don't think it's as much fun as it used to be. I know it isn't. When I started in radio, I got to choose the music I played. I played records, not computer programs. Today, radio is set up with computer programs that are controlled, and so you don't get to choose your music. But you play the music, and sometimes it's fun, sometimes it isn't. And it's also formatically controlled so that you don't get to talk very much. Well, I like to talk. So it was a lot more fun when I was starting out in radio, could pick my own music and say what I wanted to say.
I heard you did Candid Camera. How was that like?
Candid Camera, that's a great question. Candid Camera was a lot of fun, and I got it, again, by doing a charity event. I emceed a charity event, and I told a few jokes. And Peter Funt, who was the producer and star of Candid Camera, happened to be in the audience. And afterwards, he asked me if I would voice something for him for a Candid Camera video. So I said, okay. And he said, I'll pay you a round of golf. So I did the voice work, which was minimal, just took about a half hour. And then he treated me to a round of golf in Monterey, and that's how it started. Then Candid Camera did a special, then another special, then they were signed by CBS, and we were on the air for 8 years.
Do you have any advice for younger people who would like to go into the radio industry?
Sure. Never give up if you really want to do it. I have many young friends who are in the radio industry, and there are a lot of roadblocks along the way. Maybe a boss that isn't so nice, maybe a corporation that doesn't like what you say, and you have to have faith in yourself, and you have to have determination, and you also have to show up early and leave late. Show them that you really care.
What did you do for DJ?
As a DJ?
Yeah.
I did everything as a DJ. I was an afternoon host, I was a morning host, I played the music, I picked the music, I wrote the jokes, I did all of that, and it was a lot of fun. I would look up things in the morning in the paper and think of jokes to tell about what the mayor did today or what the mayor did yesterday. That was probably the most fun.
Did you do the DJ host with another person with you, or were you by yourself?
The last job at K-Bay, I've had a morning show host, a co-host, a woman, and we're very much not alike, which makes for a really fun show because she'll say something I think is stupid, and I'll say, I think that's stupid, and then we'll go back and forth, and she'll, well, I think you're stupid, and pretty soon we're all laughing. So it's real fun to work with other people.
Thank you for having this interview with me.
It's my pleasure.
My name is Carla Hopper, and this is our guest, Sam Van Zandt. Thank you.
What was the most important lesson you've learned?
An important lesson I learned was, if you want to be a radio host, go ahead and pursue your dreams. Don't give up. If you want to find out more, go to OWH Studios on YouTube.
Excellent. Upcoming next, we have Huge Crew, who works on the show The Voice. Let's take a look. Hello, welcome to the OWH Studio and Panther the Future. Here today we have Hugh Grew, who works on the show The Voice. Hello, how are you doing?
Barry, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it.
So tell us about what you do for The Voice.
The Voice is just one of the many jobs that I do in broadcast. I started about 30 years ago, and I'm a freelancer for 30 years, so I work on a number of shows. This weekend I did the Critics' Choice Awards. Yesterday I was in Los Angeles working on The Voice, prepping for season 16. I'll be doing the Screen Actors Guild Awards in a couple of weeks. Going to Atlanta to do NFL honors for right before the Super Bowl, and then coming back for the Grammys and the Oscars. I do graphics for TV shows, live graphics. So basically, when the light hits, you got to hit a button and do 2D and 3D animations for different shows. I've been doing it for close to 30 years.
30 years. So what are the things that you like about the job and the things you dislike about it?
So, and it's most of Los Angeles, for example, they're freelancers. It's freelance camera, audio, tape, replay, utilities, and so on. So you get all these creatives together to put together a project, which is the funnest part, getting together and inventing, problem solving, and so on. Freelance is not for everybody. If someone craves stability and security, I would say you may want to just go get a regular job. But if you crave some excitement and different energy, you put yourself out there and see what happens, and hope people will be telephoning you for work.
So when you first got the job, what was your experience like?
It was just short of a nightmare, because I worked a football game doing graphics in San Diego, and I was highly unqualified for the job. But somewhere in the back of my head, I felt that I knew I could make this thing work. But once I got to the stadium and to the truck, the main question that the director was asking me during the football game was, "Have you done this before?" And I lied and said, "Yes." Anyway, I got through the game, and after that I realized I need to pick up skills. But it's the whole catch-22. Have you done it before? But how do you get experience unless you say you've done it before? So somewhere in that little circular world, you've got to get in there, and I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but it's not unlike that at the start. But it was a very nervous time.
Very nervous. Okay. So now let's talk about the past. So tell me, what steps have you done to be the person you are now?
Well, if I relate it to work, it's the first real job I got was for a cable station called Financial News Network, and that was a regular gig. So this is back in 86, and without getting into how I got the job, which is not unlike the first gig I did, freelance, I ended up coming in early to work and staying late and diving into the equipment I was running until I became the best person at the studio running it. Mm-hmm. So I did a lot of extra hours. And I'd say that applies to so many different things in life, about getting there on time or early and staying later than you have to make sure that you are bringing the best that you can to it, and also trying to excel. So I've sort of applied television production to my life in the same way, whether I apply it to friendships or whatever thing I'm working on. It's a work ethic in the end.
So, just wondering, what kind of student were you when you're in high school compared to college?
High school, yeah, high school is an interesting time for everybody, because you're still trying to sort out who you are, and I hadn't done that yet. So that when I finally got away from where I was comfortable, which is like hometown and family, and I went off to college, I was a bit untethered. Read into that what you will. Well, let's just say I didn't finish in 4 years, but I did finish.
What advice would you give to the other people that wanted to be you?
I would expand that to anyone that wants to get into production. And that is, I think, first and foremost, have a passion for the work that you do. I just met an individual I did Will Smith's The Jump in the Navajo Nation, the Grand Canyon, end of September. He turned 50, so he bungee jumped off a helicopter. So I was out there, and there was a young man who was driving the crew van. But in Scottsdale, where he's living, he was just on the cusp of becoming a director. And he was maybe 25, 30 years my junior. Yet I could not stump him on films and actors going back to way before he was born. Turns out he had a 5,000 film library at home on VHS and DVD. And so I was throwing out names and he goes, oh yeah, that was this guy and this. So this guy just loved the craft. Yet he was driving the crew van. But then I just saw like a week or two ago, he finally got his first big gig where he was directing probably a commercial or something in the Phoenix area. So it really is commitment again and work ethic, but also having a passion for it and not being caught up in the bells and whistles and the perks of wanting to hang out with any sort of in-crowd thing. That's a spiral, a slippery slope.
Okay. Where did your motivation come from? Is there like someone you look up to?
There was an individual I met in Seattle when I was finishing school that was a radio and TV guy from Fairbanks, Alaska. And he, in many ways, was a better mentor to me about what it takes to become a working adult and my own father. And we won't go into the specifics of that. But he showed me work ethic. He showed me skills. He showed me on-the-job tips and tricks to get through stuff and to understand better how it all works. Once you get your head out of theory and the books of production, ultimately you're faced with a real-life situation where the clock's ticking and it's costing somebody money. So he taught me how to work fast and to be efficient and to be gracious during the work period. That's a key factor, is being able to get along with your coworkers.
Thank you for sharing your experience and story. I'm Perry, and see you guys next time.
What lessons did you learn from that interview?
The most important lesson I've learned is to make connections with one another. So in the future, I'll have many support. For more, check out our YouTube channel, owhstudio.tv.
So thank you again, Perry, for that lovely interview. Now we have a well-known guy named Daryl the Guru Johnson, and here it is. Hello, my name is Roy Espinoza, and welcome to Envision the Future from OWH Studios. Today, we will be interviewing someone Bay Area sports fans love, Daryl the Guru Johnson. Welcome, Daryl.
Hey, welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm born and raised in Union City, California. I've been in California my whole life, and right now, my job is, it's a blessing. My job is to be able to get on the radio at 95.7 The Game every day, 10 to 12, and I do a daily talk show to share my information or my thoughts with all the fans of the sport teams in the Bay Area.
So, where did your love of sports start?
Actually, it was passed down from my father, my dad, Norman Johnson. He's actually a native of Dallas, Texas. So my first football game as a young kid, as we lived in California, to go back home and see his family, my aunts, uncles, my grandmother, and grandfather. My first football game was a Dallas Cowboy football game. And just 7 years old, I can remember the stadium, the fans, the star on the helmet, and this was my dad's favorite team. So at that point, the energy from the crowd, it was something I couldn't forget. And from Little League on, after we got back to California, sports was my thing, you know. Baseball, football, basketball, soccer, whatever. I just took a liking and love to it.
So what would you say is like your overall favorite sport?
You know what? It's like, I know you're too young to have kids, but I got 3 kids, and it's like asking which kid is your favorite. I don't. I love, it's all seasonal. So whichever sport is in, I'm 100% vested. So I get that question a lot, and they're like, oh, you got to have a favorite. I don't. I love them all the same, equal.
Okay. How did you get your job?
It's funny you say that. I'm not a spring chicken per se. So because I love sports, I had delivery jobs in my life, and I'd be driving around and I'd listen to guys like Gary Radnich, Pete Franklin, local, talk show host on the Bay Area. So it was different from just listening to the music, but also, the games are later on in the evening. And I would always, as a fan, look forward to the games. And I felt like the medium of sports radio and hearing guys talk about it, the Warriors, the Raiders, the Niners, the A's, Giants, it was like an appetizer to the game. So it would make the time go faster before the games were played. So I always kind of had a dream that maybe someday I could, host my own show and have people from the Bay Area call and get my thoughts. But I made the phone call not with that dream or thought process. I just made it because I had an opinion on what the guys were talking about. And if I disagreed with them, I disagreed with them, but I would always pull over at, the stops that I had at my delivery job, and I'd always make time no cell phones at that time. I'd always make time to call in the office. And I called Pete Franklin one time. He had a show in San Francisco, and the first call I had, he goes, "What do you think you are, some type of guru?" And then his whole bit was when he didn't agree with you, they'd have the sound of a toilet flushing. So he flushed me. And the funny thing about it was, I'm thinking it's just me and I'm calling because I love sports, but my parents, all my friends were like, "Hey, we heard you on the radio, you got flushed." So I say that to say is he gave me that name, the Guru. So, I was hard-headed. So when I called back, which I did the next day and every day of the week, I called myself the Guru. So that's how I got that name. And he's since passed on. But Pete Franklin, he always told us, he was originally from Cleveland. He was the inventor of sports talk radio. So I always keep that Guru with me now, Daryl the Guru Johnson, because he kind of gave that to me.
How did you prepare for your job?
Well, that's interesting. It's all about prep. And, you asked me, how did I start liking sports? A lot of people, average fans think it's just turning on the game, but, I would study the box score or see, if there was infighting going on within the team or possible trades. And, as a young boy, it was before the internet and social media, so there wasn't a lot of scrutiny outside of the local newspaper. But to answer your question, now with the internet and me getting older and social media hitting, getting on the scene, every little quote was under the microscope. So to answer your question, there's so many venues now, not the hard copy papers, everything's online. So I had all, ESPN, CBS Sports, all the New York Times, all the different newspapers, websites I could go to learn more information about my favorite team because there were different writers. Now there's 1 million writers for each team. So now I take pride, it being my job to talk about the local Bay Area teams. I'm going to watch the games and know about it anyway. But now, this is why I say it's a blessing. It's my job to prep myself and kind of get notes like a reporter. I'm not a reporter, but I feel like one in regard to I got an abundance of information and a wealth of knowledge that I can share and help me come up with these decisions and thoughts on different topics on what's going on in Bay Area sports.
So would you say the time you take to prepare for your job is like almost a 24/7 thing?
Yeah, no doubt, exactly. And it's funny, my kids will be, "Daddy, why do you always watch the game?" And I'll be like, son or daughter, Daddy's doing homework because now it's my job and I don't want to miss anything. And people depend on me, as I share my opinion on a daily basis. You need to know what's going on. So I was doing that anyway, but now I'm just locked in 100 times more because, again, it's my job and I want to make sure I know what's going on. So if, guys and gals call and ask my opinion, I want to make sure I'm well versed on the topic.
One question I have is, do you think the Warriors are going to get to the finals and win it?
Oh, there's no doubt. And this is wonderful and incredible because I can remember a time, I'm older than you again, obvious. I can remember where the Warriors, were going through a tough time, but the Bay Area fans always showed up. So the love was real. It wasn't about, you're not winning. We just love you and what you represent. So that was a big deal. And to answer your question, with Kevin Durant and now DeMarcus Boogie Cousins coming back, I believe Friday is his first game back. They're clicking on all cylinders. I expect, the Bay Area to have another parade come June right here in Lake Merritt.
I want to thank my guest, Daryl the Guru Johnson, for coming out and joining us. I'm Roy from OWH Studios, and good day. Okay, I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in. It's about the end of the show. So right now, speaking on behalf of Perry, Kala, and Alexa, I can say that it was much fun making these videos. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Oh yeah, of course. It's a fun experience. If you could do it, do it.
Yes, it was super fun and super cool.
It was a very interesting experience for me.
Okay, well, we want to thank you guys for tuning in. Special thanks to our mentors, William Hammond, Sam Van Zandt, and Brenda from OWH Studios for teaching us about media and getting us out of our comfort zones. Because I know for a fact, if you would have told me earlier this week that I would have been doing this, I would have done it. But don't forget to follow the YouTube channel for more videos like this. I'm Roy, and see you next time.